Hello there, and welcome once again to the Saigon Writers Club testimonial section of our website. My name is Sam Korslow. I'm the founder and instructor of the Saigon Writers Club. And this is lesson 5 of 7. And in these series of lessons, of course, we're trying to break down the modern short story. You see there in the upper right, it does have some rules, 10,000 words read in one sitting, 2 or 3 main characters, 1 or 2 minor characters, a single event. And it kind of follows this this template: opening, inciting moment, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, and so on. So that's your standard short story. That's how we get started. And each one of those parts, part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, there's a purpose there. Of course, the opening is to introduce the characters. Part 2, the inciting moment, is what is the problem, what is the issue, the rising action of that issue, the climax, the falling action, and then the resolution. And so these 6 areas is the purpose of these videos that I'm doing here. And today we are looking at the climax. So the climax is it. This is what the story is all about. We're going to talk about, the reader wants to know what's going to happen. What's the story all about? How's it going to end? And we tell the reader that in the climax. And if you followed along up to now, you know that I'm using my own short story, Memo from the Landlord, that was published in the Dry Season 2022 short story anthology of the Saigon Writers Club, to teach that, to describe that with a real life example. So let's start. So part 4, the climax. So this is the result of the rising action, and this is the answer to the conflict. It's what the reader has been waiting for. They want to know, well, what happened? What's that guy going to do? What's the situation going to get resolved? What's going to happen next? And it's not necessarily a one-off event. And so that's one thing. The climax will never be a sentence or a statement. It's probably, of those 6 areas, opening, inciting moment, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, is probably the shortest of the 6 in terms of word count. But that's just it, only in word count. So again, referring back to my story, if you know, up until now, the characters had converged to Idaho to watch a total solar eclipse occur. And so naturally, when the corona appears, that is the climax. But as you'll see here, it's only the beginning of the climax. It takes place over the whole phase of the time that the corona is in place. So I'm going to read here. The dark black hole where the sun used to be was much, much blacker than the rest of the sky. It felt like, if you were tall enough, that you could reach your hand through the hole and something or someone would grasp your hand on the other side. And it would be a warm hand. It would feel good. At that time, at that moment, everyone in the small group knew we were not alone. There was something behind that hole that a scientist could never explain. So this is a description of the climax. And you'll see that I italicized the word "new." Earlier on in the rising action, I italicized a similar phrase. Everyone just plain knew about there is something behind the dark black hole. And so the climax in this story here is certainly about the corona, certainly about the totality, the total solar eclipse having arrived. And it's there for 3 minutes, but it's how everyone reacts to that. That is the gist of this climax. And so again, more description, but in this case, description plus action. Many people started crying. Some were hugging each other, laughing, and began dancing around. An older couple began to dance the waltz around the group, sloppily kissing each other. I looked over at Max and Colin, and also at the father and daughter. "Daddy, there's a hole in the sky!" screamed Colin. Look it, there's a hole in the sky." Colin briefly looked away from the eclipse toward his dad, who was transfixed, stuck in place. The father and daughter seemed to step forward as if they wanted to talk, as if they wanted to walk into the hole. It looked like the father was talking to someone, and his daughter held up her hands like a toddler asking to be picked up. So in the rising action, we meet actually a couple other characters. We meet the older couple who are dancing, and we meet the father-daughter. They're also there, also waiting for the corona to appear, also being pulled in some way to see this total solar eclipse. And of course, the main characters of Colin and Max, and then the the editor, the narrator, the first person point of view. Just want to bring you attention to Colin saying, "Daddy, there's a hole in the sky. Look it, there's a hole in the sky." I spent a lot of time on look it, there's a hole in the sky, because you want to have the voice, the character, the discourse, and the dialogue and the words of an 8-year-old. Look it, look it. That's a very young, kiddie, excited kind of thing. And so I encourage all of you to put those kinds of words into your narrative, especially obviously when it fits the character so well. And here's the wrapping up of the climax scene. So this is the end of the climax. The older couple who had been doing the waltz had fallen to the ground, holding hands and with their heads next to each other. Max was still on his knees, but he was no longer looking up nor looking at anything in particular. He just stared straight forward with a peaceful look on his face. The father and daughter had turned towards each other and into a deep embrace. The girl was sobbing, while the father held her head against his chest. So this is, the Kronos appeared, everyone has this moment, all the different characters, people started crying, hugging, laughing. We focus on an older couple, the father-daughter, and then of course our main characters. And that wraps up the climax scene. So in a way, the story is over. We've reached the climax. Colin and Max saw the total solar eclipse and they experienced what they experienced, which was the point of the story. So this is the final part. Again, you can see it's only 700, well, almost 800 words. I encourage you to read that because this section here comprises of the climax of the short story. All right, so 2 more to go, following action and then resolution. I hope you stay with us and keep watching. And until then, have a great day.